Starting from Scratch is brought to you by Nikon.
The M1 carbine is a classic U.S. military firearm which played a pivotal role during World War II. And we actually have two very special pieces right here. We've got an original 1945 era M1 carbine, and then we have a 1943 vintage paratrooper model, both made by Inland Manufacturing, which was actually a division of General Motors.
Right.
And they were the largest producer by far of all the 10 contractors that made carbines during World War II.
Not only were they the largest producer, they became the largest producer of firearms in the United States during World War II.
And they produced actually over 4 million carbines, didn't they?
Yes.
Okay, now today we also have an Inland reproduction M1 carbine paratrooper and M1 carbine. And can you tell us a little bit about how you brought the carbine back?
Well, being from Dayton, Ohio, just one of the very first firearms I remember going to the range shooting was an M1 carbine. And knowing how great that little rifle was for beginning shooters and the simplicity of it, when we started Inland Manufacturing, it made perfect sense for that to be the flagship model for us to run with. And we want to build a modern rifle using modern technology as closely as we could possibly to the original.
And you actually went back to the original prints when you first started.
That's correct. We used a lot of the original dimensions on it, which was a double-edged sword. We found where we had a lot of good information there. There's a lot of information that wasn't documented on those original prints. So we had to sort of reinvent the wheel, and it had the same growing pains that Inland did in 1941.
Because there were actually changes made by armorers during the war, weren't there?
Yes, the engineering notes and changes made, most of which were never documented. And by the request of the government, all the firearm manufacturers were not to document it because they didn't want the enemy to find out what we were doing for our firearms.
So you actually made changes as you evolved to increase the reliability of the gun, which were based upon original wartime changes.
Exactly. In fact, the way we did that, we took a 1945 model, very similar to this one, that was probably the best shooting, most accurate original specimen I could find. And we totally reverse engineered it and found that there were some very minor changes, especially when it came to the bolt and the cam area, that allowed it to be much more reliable and function much better. And every once in a while, we were finding issues with our early production guns, and when we made that change, those problems went away.
Your attention to detail has actually been startling. Can you give us a little bit about your stock finish?
Well, the stock finish, I was preparing for the Inland production many years before I even realized it. In 1976, I was an apprentice tool and die maker in Dayton and had the opportunity to work with some tool and die makers that actually worked at Inland and was building guns.
During the war?
During the war. And they're the ones turned me on to the process and the oil finishes that was used by Inland. And I've been using them on my custom guns for many years, and it was just a natural progression.
Okay, and what do we have right here? This is a modern evolution to show exactly what the carbine can do.
Yep, this is pretty much what the M1 carbine can become. This is our new prototype. It's utilizing a Sage aluminum stock assembly. This particular one is an SBR, and we've got a prototype suppressor for the .30 carbine attached to it.
Well, I tell you, I love the .30 carbine. I bought one when I was 14. It's an amazing, fun to shoot little gun, and it's great to see what Inland's doing with it today.
That's great.